Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are about to talk about our favourite TV episodes of the year. Just to preface this with a couple of things. One, with the exception of one show, we have limited each show to one episode.
Yes, it was a tough choice for some of them.
Yeah, but that was to keep the love spread. And the exception where there's two from one, it makes sense that this is like
Yeah.
one where we could pick multiple, and it'll make sense when we get there. The other thing to preface is that this is only based on the shows that both of us have covered together on this channel this year. So if one of us don't watch it, it's not there. So Car doesn't watch Ash vs Evil Dead, wasn't eligible. I don't watch Game of Thrones, wasn't eligible. Number 10 is Supergirl Season 1 Episode 18, World's Finest. This is, of course, the Flash crossover episode that aired in March. It came after the weekend of Batman v Superman, so as a DC fan, I needed this in my system.
Yeah, it was like we got crushed. Our souls were literally like one of those, those car crushers. It goes in those little cubes.
Compactor.
Yeah. That's what it was like. And then this managed to rebuild it.
It was just an insanely fun crossover because the characters were interacting. But unlike when you had Oliver and Barry interacting in their crossovers, both Supergirl and Flash are both very fun spirited. They're both very hopeful and upbeat, and their enthusiasm of meeting each other was just such a it almost does get bonus points for coming right after Batman v Superman and how we felt after that movie because it was such a counteract to that.
That and it played on the love of food, such as ice creams.
Yes, and donuts and all the other junk food that Supergirl seems to love to eat.
So, big points for that.
The actual sort of, the plot of the episode, the villains involved weren't that exciting, which is why, it's only at number 10 rather than higher. But it was just a jolly, feel-good kind of episode where we found ourselves smiling constantly throughout.
Yeah, it's probably the only episode of its kind on this list. Just in terms of the reasoning why it's there.
Because a lot of the other ones we're going to get to are there because they're exceptional filmmaking or they're great culminations of things that we're building up to, or they're excellent character pieces, whereas this was just good-natured fun. And since we do cover a lot of superhero shows, they at least have to be partially represented in these.
Yeah, and obviously
stuff.
as big DC fans, obviously we do a podcast, so it'd be weird if we didn't love this.
It was very hard picking between this and the Superman episodes from Season 2, but tough choices had to be made. Number 9 is 3%, Episode 5, Season 1. The episode is called War. And this, of course, is from the Brazilian show that is a Netflix exclusive, Netflix original. Went up in November. We reviewed the whole first season. And this was an episode where it went away from the characters that we'd been following and followed an individual character in the past. And it explored a lot of plot details behind one character's motivations and how they changed and what they became. And it was a very prominent episode in the show because it completely changed how we looked at one of the main characters.
Yeah, it kind of gave whole new dynamics to everything going into the end game of the season. Everything kind of felt much more important and well-reasoned.
And it took a character who was perhaps hard to relate to before and made them sympathetic.
Yeah.
So it added layers to the show. It gave us like this emotional tug in multiple directions, which, don't get me wrong, the show was very tense before. I highly recommend checking it out. But this gave it just that extra dimension that was missing before.
But I think it was worth noting that it's placed perfectly in the season for where it hits as well. Because if this had been earlier or later in the season, it may not have had the same impact as it did. But just where it was, just after the midpoint, was the perfect point for it.
Number 8 is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3, Episode 15, Spacetime. And we did just say we were DC fans. We talked about Supergirl. And this is a Marvel show. But this is a very good Marvel show. It's a Marvel show as well that a lot of people seem to...
They wrote it off after the first half of season, which, admittedly, I did too at the time.
Season 1.
Came back. Yeah. First half of season. I meant season 1 there.
Yeah. No, but we're talking about season 3, so you could...
Yeah, but just the show in general, people wrote off early on, and I did too because it wasn't that great at the time. And it developed and it grew. I went back to it when I heard good things, but a lot of people just never did.
Yeah, they didn't, and it's a show that ever since like the last handful of episodes of season 1, it's been very consistent.
Yeah.
Uh, it probably has some of the best pacing on network TV.
Yeah, and it's constantly surprising us with its pacing. Like, even though we know it's fast paced and it kind of delivers things much quicker than we typically expect on network TV, it still surprises us that it does it every week almost.
Yeah, and this episode is a very prominent episode because it has a focus. It has a very specific focus, and it succeeds on multiple fronts. It advances the plot in a really interesting way with a very emotional story about a character who is only there for that episode. But there's actually an emotional attachment to a guest star, which is rare in TV. Usually they're quite disposable because you know they're not coming back, or you know.
Yeah, they're usually there just to further attachment to your own characters.
Yeah. So not only do we have that, but we have amazing action sequences in this episode. There's a fantastic one-shot fight sequence where a character goes through a room and takes out multiple bad guys in one take. And it's not actually the first time the show's done it, but every time it has done it, it's been very impressive. So action was visceral, had very emotional moments, but it also set up a lot of the plot for the rest of the season. And it even brought in an element that had been teased right from the start of the half of the season. And we didn't know what it meant, and then we've seen it again in this one, and it finally put it into place. So this one was a culmination of a lot of things, but also a setup of a lot of other things, but it added weight to them, and even gave us some magical, whimsical moments as well, I might add.
Yeah, like I say, it was really like a pivotal episode for the season because, like I say, it was the culmination of so much, but at the same time presented what the rest going forward would be into the end stretch, and it did it all so well.
Number 7 is Stranger Things, Season 1, Episode 6. It's called The Monster. And picking an episode from Stranger Things was really difficult because it very much is an 8-part story which, you know, was watched in a binge very...
But it had to be represented because it's Stranger Things.
It had to be. And the episode, I think... Obviously, Episode 8, the finale, is one that is tempting, I think, for a lot of people. But I think Episode 6 for me sticks out just that little bit more.
It's kind of got that extra emotional heart to it.
It does, because it comes at a point in the season where it's kind of the start of Act 3. It's the end of Act 2 getting into the start of Act 3 of a 3-act story. And the characters are at their lowest point. They're at their darkest point. And all hope seems lost. And there's a moment towards the end of the episode where, oh no. Hope is here. Hope is alive. Hope is well. And it's a great, you know, fist pumping in the air moment where someone is saved at the last second, and it's heroic. It's almost, there's even the shot, and again, no spoilers here, but there's even a shot as a character walks into the scene where it's framed like a western, like the gunslinger is entering the scene to save the day.
It's probably like the scene of the show.
It probably is for me as well, but I do have a few that are not far behind it. But not only did we have that, we had a lot of other plot advancement in the episode. We had the aftermath of probably the biggest cliffhanger in the show so far from the end of the 5th episode. We also had the characters being more proactive in this episode, because obviously Stranger Things was split into, they had the kids, you had the teenagers, and you had the adults. And this is the episode where the teenagers started to form a plan and actually start to, you know, as I said, be proactive and try and take matters into their own hands. And that's always the moment in stories and movies and shows like this where you have something like a monster or a threat where, no, we're not going to run and be scared anymore, we're not going to be victims anymore. So it's kind of the uplifting into Act 3 in multiple ways.
Yeah, and then it has a great ending as well, where kind of, even though it's the end of Act 3, it's like, it goes, oh, okay, now it's really kicking off.
Leads to a very great conclusion at the start of Episode 7 as well. But Episode 6, I think, so many things just align in that episode where so many of the plots are in the perfect place that it's the standout episode of the season.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning for most of these episodes, if you want more details with spoilers and stuff, obviously, because we're being vague here, we have them all just recorded, go out the channel. For Stranger Things, we did do it mostly as one season, so it's in there, but I think there's timestamps that you can click to get to this episode if you want to talk about just that particular thing.
There isn't, but...
Is it not?
No, because we didn't do that episode by episode, I don't think.
Ah, okay. Did we do that one just as a big...
Yeah, we just did that as a one big haul. That was the last binge, like, Netflix show we did without doing each episode individually. But yeah, as you say, there'll be links. Unfortunately, the links in the corner, there's a limit of 5, so I can't put all 10. But if you go to the playlist section, you can find playlists for all the different shows, and you can find all these episodes. We're keeping this spoiler free. We don't want to, because if you're only watching like half of these, you don't want spoilers for the other half, because you might watch them, you might be tempted, you might think, oh, why get in? Number 6 is Shut Up and Dance, which is the 3rd episode of Black Mirror Season 3, which is a heart-wrenching gut punch of an episode, an immaculate thriller where you're on the edge of your seat, the stakes are high the entire time, but then at the end of the episode, you didn't even know what this was about.
Yeah, it's because obviously Black Mirror, its whole thing is it has a message, a warning to society, so to speak. And for this one, you kind of think you know what it is, but you don't.
And the end of the episode is a gut punch, because not only does it change what the episode's about, it changes your perceptions of the characters that are in the episode, it changes your perception of everything. It's a really, really great emotional ride where, and also even before we get to that point though, one of the most gut-wrenching scenes where a character's forced to do something that they are terrified of doing was absolutely almost painful to watch. It was scarier than any horror movie scene because the character's just that terrified.
That's something like, I don't think we can oversell how tense this is, because it is the tensest thing I've seen this year by far.
Yeah.
Because you get maybe 5-10 minutes in, you kind of, it's a bit casual, it's all just kind of going. And as soon as it starts, that's it. There is no pause to let you breathe again for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it just keeps building. It keeps building, and then at the end, it flips you. It's like, you almost get used to being tense by the end of the episode, and then it takes away tension and replaces it with, holy crap.
It replaces it with horror at what has happened.
Number 5, Westworld Season 1, Episode 10, The Bicameral Mind. First of all, I want to say we had 4 Westworld episodes on the shortlist.
This was definitely the show with the most potential.
Episodes, yeah, because I feel like even though obviously, it's not to say that the show itself is better than the other shows we're talking about, it's more, there was more standout episodes that we instantly went, oh, but that one had that, oh, but that one was this one. And part of me wanted to not pick the finale, because I feel like it's the easiest choice.
Yeah, I thought that as well. But then at the same time, it had the benefit of being an hour and a half versus an hour.
Yeah.
So it just got so much more into it to give us to love.
Because part of my heart really wanted to go with episode 9, because episode 9 was so fulfilling, after the build-up of all the mysteries of the season and how it revealed so much. But episode 10 takes that one step further, gives us more reveals, more resolutions to character arcs that have been so fascinating all season. But then on top of that, it gives us these completely new dynamics that haven't been in the show so far. There were scenes in the finale that I compared to some warped version of the Terminator.
Yeah, it's some of the best action sequences that you'd never expect on this show.
Yeah, even the music, which had been great all season, started to be played with because things were changing and it did different things.
There are some of my favourite moments of the music are in that episode because it works on your expectations of what it's set up over this season.
And on top of all that, it completely changes your idea of... Because Westworld's a show where if you were following the fan theories, if you were really thinking about it every week, you've seen a lot of the reveals coming from later on in the season. But there was just that one at the end of the finale that no one did see coming. At least not to any great extent. And it completely... On a rewatching season 1 now, knowing what we know from the finale, will add more layers to every single scene.
Which is almost why I was tempted to go with episode 9, because rewatching 9 after 10 is a completely different experience. But then it's only better because of 10.
Number 4 is the night of episode 1, The Beach. This is a show that, again, it kind of came out of nowhere for us. We didn't really know much about it. Episode 1 was put out early on HBO's services. Sat down to watch it. John Turturro's on this. Oh, this could be good. And while this didn't quite make our best new shows of the year, we did have a limited series section where it did kind of get a mention, but partly because the rest of the show doesn't live up to this first episode. It's good, but this first episode
it's not as great as this.
Yeah, this first episode is immaculate. We spoke about tension in some of the other entries. This follows a character who ends up in a situation where someone he's with has died, and he murdered specifically, and he tries to run away from the situation, and every single thing that follows with driving the car, interacting with the police, every single step of the way, the episode goes through everything very methodically. Every single moment you feel like you're in the shoes of this person, and your breath is like almost held. Once you get about 25 minutes into that episode, there till the end, you're hooked in a way that very few episodes of TV I think can do. Could have been a movie. This could have you could have slapped on another 20 minutes to the end of this. It was like 80 minutes long to begin with. You could have slapped another 20 minutes onto this, and it would have been satisfying.
And I almost would have preferred it, because, like I say, the rest of the show doesn't live up to this episode, and at the same time, how could it?
Yeah.
I mean, if it had lived up to this episode, this would have probably been the best show of the year. Because if it had maintained that throughout all 8 episodes, it was just phenomenal.
This was the first thing this year where I watched this and went, I need to tell people about this. More people need to watch this.
This could be the next big thing. Go and watch it immediately.
Number 3 is Mr. Robot, Season 2, Episode 10, EPS 2.8, Hidden Process.axx. This is not the finale. You might be thinking, wait, is there 10 episodes in Season 2? No, there's actually 12, so this is not the season finale. This is just before the 2-part finale. This episode is picked because, in terms of structure, in terms of pacing, in terms of plot elements sort of wrapping together into a satisfying conclusion, this is a masterclass, this episode. Not only that, the final scene in this episode, which everything culminates in, is some of the best direction in TV this year.
Yeah, it is possibly the finest moment of camera work I've seen all year. It's direction that is utterly confident and knows exactly what it wants to do. It knows exactly how it's going to look, and it just does it.
Yeah, and all of this means big things for the characters. It's, one character's chasing another pair of characters, and they're just catching them up to them in time, but there's danger, there's threat, and the threat's around every corner, and the final moments are just so expertly just placed.
And it manages to be incredibly visceral without showing almost anything.
Visceral is a good word for it. Very visceral. Visceral and almost eerily realistic, I think is another thing I would say. But at the same time, there's Easter eggs, just in simple things, like I will simply mention the countdown to the walk sign on the traffic lights. And if you've seen the episode, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. Simple little things like that, and yeah. And I think, when the episode ended and it went to credits, this was like, holy crap, that's, we knew it would be on this list at the end of the year. There was no way it wasn't going to be. It was, we have to talk about this episode right now.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. It was, I need a moment to sit in silence and process it before I can think about talking, and then I want to talk for an hour.
But everything about it, everything just kept building and building. Because there's actually, there's other stuff we're not even really talking about in terms of other plots in the episode, which were very emotionally interesting between other characters. And again, I'm avoiding spoilers here, so I don't want to specify who's who here. But there's an encounter on a train between two characters who have a very touching sort of conclusion, and it's especially touching because those two characters haven't even really had a chance to see each other most of the season. 10 minutes before the end of the episode, the music starts.
And it does this fast intercutting between these two sequences.
Yeah. And once the music starts, it keeps building until the end of the episode. And it's like a solid 10 minutes, and it's just that.
And it's one of those moments where you don't even notice the music's kind of started until you think back, and it's like, oh, okay, it's been going that long, and then it's just there all of a sudden that you notice it.
It's very rare that I go back and just watch like a section of an episode.
Yeah.
But I immediately did it with this. Number 2 is Quarry, Season 1, Episode 4, Seldom Realised. And this is a show that, much like a couple of the others, came out of nowhere for us. We didn't even know about it until the day it was airing. That's how...
Yeah, this was a surprise. This was a case of, well, we liked the last show in this time slot. What are they replacing it with?
Yeah.
Oh, this sounds alright. Let's check it out.
This is from Cinemax, and it's about a soldier who comes back from Vietnam in the 1970s and is forcibly becomes a hitman. A lot of it revolves around his relationship with his wife and the turmoil that goes through. And episode 4 is a masterclass in TV where it's set mostly in one location with just two characters who have a series of conversations. And every single conversation is as riveting as any action sequence in just about any other show in this top 10.
And also, this show in particular does some fantastic action sequences.
It does, yeah.
And this is on par with all of them.
Yeah, but this episode doesn't have action sequences. Not really. That's in other episodes where you get the fantastic one-take car chases, and you get the giant one-take Vietnam flashback. You know, those appear in other episodes.
That's how good these conversations are. We mentioned the one-take stuff where we talked about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This did that on a scale far bigger.
Yeah. Like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did one that lasted about a minute. But it was great fun, and there was a lot of action in that one take.
This one had like 8 minutes or something stupid like that.
Yeah, in the season finale, there's an 8-minute one-take sequence in a battle in Vietnam, and it is absolutely breathtaking what they do on
these
TV
conversations are better than that.
Especially taken as a whole, taking the episode where everything in the episode is about what their conversations are. It's about what's going on. It's about the two characters. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler to say it's about, it's the Mac and his wife. It's the main two characters, and it's at them and about their relationship and everything that's happened in the first three, everything that's been building up because he was away at Vietnam, what's happened since he's came back, their distance.
What's going to happen next?
What's going to happen next? You don't know what's going to happen next. And everything in the episode, metaphorically or not, is about this. It's about what's going on between them. And it's such a very... I mean, it's self-contained. Obviously, nothing matters to you if you've not watched the first three. But it's such a self-contained story in that it has a beginning, middle, and end. And the ending packs so much weight. And you kind of feel like you know what's about to happen. But it's such a beautiful shot that finalises everything that the episode's been about. Where you're rooting for something to happen at the end. You're like, please give it this ending.
Beautiful imagery to top it all off as well.
Yeah. A lot of metaphorical imagery with water's a big theme throughout the season, and there's a lot of that in this one as well.
Yeah.
And the ending is just this perfect shot that caps just a perfect bow on what has been an emotional roller coaster through nothing but character work.
Yeah, and we say this every time this show comes up, not on the It Show's review, but please go and watch Quarry. It's phenomenal. No one seems to have watched it.
It's the best
show. Do
show.
yourself a favour and do it.
It's the best show that no one's watched this year. Number one, and this is where we bring in the one exception to the two episodes from the one show. Number one is San Junipero from Black Mirror Season 3. The reason why this is an exception, of course, is because it is an anthology, and each episode is completely different and standalone, and it felt weird to say, no, shut up and dance, you can't be on this list. Because...
yeah, it felt like you were punishing it for doing something entirely different and almost incomparable in a sense.
Whereas with all the other entries, like we talked about how Westworld Episode 10 is great because of everything that built up to it. They're all included kind of in that. This is the culmination. Quarry Episode 4, fantastic and standalone as it is, doesn't mean anything without the first three. So they all kind of tie into what was picked. Whereas here, these are completely standalone stories. These are completely standalone, essentially movies, for lack of a better term.
Which kind of makes this episode all the more impressive. Whereas, like this is above Westworld, which was the culmination of an entire season, 10.5 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that Westworld Season 1 isn't better than Black Mirror Season 3 as a whole, and I'm not going to spoil if we think that or not, because we're doing a best TV shows of the year video coming up later this week, but it does mean that this individual episode on its own, as a complete experience, was our favourite episode of the year.
Yeah.
And it was funny, because we've seen Shut Up and Dance, obviously, we talked about that. You can find that on the channel. Make sure there's links to some of these at the end screen and on the corner. And that was phenomenal. And we thought, oh man, that was a great episode. That's probably going to be the highlight of the season. And then episode 4, San Junipero, was better. At least in our opinion. Obviously, very subjective. We did a Season 3 Black Mirror episode ranked video where we ranked the 6 of them in order. And the list that people were giving us in the comments were so varied. Like, almost every single episode was at the number 1 spot at someone's list. And almost every episode was at the bottom of someone's list.
Which is how it's almost miraculous that we agreed on this as the best one.
I think it makes some sense. I think being friends and watching and almost becoming friends because we're into similar content, at least in some capacity. Maybe we vary a lot in music, for example, but certainly in terms of TV, to an extent movies, there's a reason why we do this together. And San Junipero, I think, appeals to both of us because it, and again, we're going to get spoilers, but we will say there's a lot of 80s imagery, there's a lot of neon lighting, it's got a fantastic soundtrack. More than anything else, though, it is a very touching love story, which is maybe weird to hear two guys say, oh no, the best TV episode of the year was a love story, but it was.
What can I say? We're a sucker for romance, clearly.
We're romantics at heart.
Yeah.
It's about two great characters. Almost, if compare it to Quarry just for a second here, it's about two characters interacting for the most part. There's more. Obviously, it's not set all in one place, and it's not set all in one day. Quarry wasn't set one day, but it was like one stretch of time. Yeah. There's time jumps in this, but even when they're not together, it's the worry that they won't find each other again, or it's the
everything is just about the two of them and it playing off each other. That's it. There is no external worries that individual, because even when they are brought up, it's still in relation to how it affects the two of them.
Yeah, and when there is a twist and there is a reveal about what's really going on, because there's a sense of mystery from early on, things maybe aren't quite what they seem, and once it is revealed and it becomes clear, you don't go, oh my god, twist, that was shocking, like the end of Sixth Sense. It's not like that. It's not like a huge, shock to the system. It's not pull the rug. The twist in Shut Up and Dance, I think, was more of a twist. It felt like a twist.
Yeah, that was like, oh, you didn't see this coming.
Whereas here, the reveal itself wasn't important because of what's going on. It's what it does to those characters and why they're attracted to each other, why they want to be with each other, what is their history. And it builds on that and builds a more interesting concept of it. It gives the episode much more to say as a result of the twist, as it should. At the end, I think we were just left with a smile on our face. And, I think this will be a divisive pick. I think some people will be like, what, that? Like, the other 9 were great and you picked that as number 1. But yeah, we did.
And what can I say? It has Clint Mansell doing the score, and it is utterly phenomenal. And also, Clint Mansell is one of my favourite composers.
Music is very good.
Yeah.
I also will say, just to talk about Black Mirror Season 3 as a whole, it was perfect putting this one after Shut Up and Dance because they counterbalance each other very well.
Yeah, as much as we said, it kind of works on its own, like they're incomparable as a season as a whole. This was such a perfect placement to give you this uplifting sense after the tension and dread that was the one before. It was kind of a breather. Because
they could have put those episodes in any order. It didn't matter, really.
Yeah.
But they chose this specifically, and I think it was a smart move. Terrific acting from the two leads, and I think a story that most people should see, even if you don't want to watch the rest of Black Mirror because it's too depressing. And who could forgive you for that? Because it is kind of depressing, and it's because most of Black Mirror is here. Look at how awful we are, and
this is pretty much it.
And this show is look, we can do. We can be better than this, and
it's like yeah, we can be awful, but look at what we can do if we really try.
Yeah, and for people who debate that the ending's actually not as uplifting as maybe some people like to believe, okay, you can argue that about the ending, but I think the rest of the episode is very uplifting regardless of the ending. So that's been our top 10 individual episodes of 2016 of TV. By all means, let us know in the comments which ones you are your favourites. Obviously, you're probably going to disagree with the order. You're probably going to say, oh, I don't watch this show and that show. But for the shows you do watch that we've picked episodes from, was that the same episode that you'd have picked? Would you have picked, episode 9 of Westworld? Would you have picked this or that? By all means, let us know. I'm really curious. And always remember, it is opinions, and everyone will have different ones, and that's okay. That's cool. Just be nice to each other. And ideally be nice to us, but more so be nice to each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can say what you want about Pete.
No, you can say what you want about Connor.
Well,
I'm a delicate flower. I have to be treated with gently.
That's true. I'm a ginger. I've learnt to take it.
But yeah, that's our top 10 episodes of the year. Thank you very much for watching. We will be back with our best 10 shows of the year. We did best 10 new shows, but this is 10 shows of the year. This is everything, returning shows, what had the best year.
Much higher stakes.
Much higher stakes. Of course, the best new shows might inform some of that list. You can look at that and say, oh, well, obviously the top few in that are probably going to appear, but...
But where?
but where? So thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz. And as we said before, you can check out reviews of all of these episodes on the channel. So thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next time.